Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ProPak India Virtual Expo Connect. Without any delay, let's begin with our first session for the day with a presentation on Dehydration Technology and Global Opportunities by Mr. Sagar Kurade, Managing Director, Suman Food Consultants. Over to you, Sagar ji.
Good morning, everybody. This is Sagar Kurade, Managing Director of Suman Food Consultants. It's an absolute pleasure today being part of this virtual expo in this pandemic days. This is the way to go forward. My presentation today would be with regard to dehydration technologies and global opportunities. As you know, there are a lot of opportunities happening currently within the dehydration sector. Our processing levels in India are quite low as compared to the rest of the world when it comes to fruits, vegetables, and certain other commodities. And dehydration is a natural technology to extend the shelf life of a particular product. In the pandemic days, we noticed that a lot of companies who were into fresh foods and commodities decided to look into the dehydration option with regard to extending the shelf life of their commodities. And dehydration played a very, very critical role in ensuring that the supply chain disruptions that were taking place during the pandemic months were not there so much. And therefore, I'm going to talk a little bit about what dehydration technology is about, the options associated with it, and giving you perspective with regard to what the trade opportunities can emerge from. With that, I would like to share my presentation. Just let me share my screen in accordance. So as I mentioned, Suman Food Consultants is India's leading consulting company in food processing sector. Over the last 50 odd years, we have provided our services in hand-holding various agri-infrastructure and food processing plants in India and abroad. Over the last 50 years, our services have been provided to Fortune 100 companies, multinational companies, Government of India, and various SME, small and medium enterprises within the food processing field. You can certainly look us up at sumanfoodconsultants.com. Let's talk a little bit about dehydration. So when we look at dehydration, basically it is a technology which involves extraction of moisture, thereby inhibiting any growth of microorganisms in the product and leading to shelf life extension of that particular product or commodity. Some of the key aspects associated with dehydration is that the moisture removal is a fundamental process in the food production. So if you see traditionally, it is only second to cooking when it comes to stabilization and preservation of any food product. While it's an essential step, it's important to understand that it can be a very energy intensive process and can lead to destruction of the product appearance as well as nutritional values. And hence, there are various options that are available which entrepreneurs typically use depending upon the product appearance that entrepreneur wants from their dehydrated food products or the nutritional values that they are looking for, or for that matter, the application in which the food product is to be used. With that, let me share a little bit about some of the key factors that impact dehydration. So one of the key factors is with regard to the surface area. So the bigger the surface area exposure of the product, the more would be the rate of moisture loss, or for that matter, the smaller the food piece, the easier it would be to dehydrate. So just keep this in mind. You can have the product in slices, which would give the product a more surface area and therefore a faster rate of moisture loss, or you can have the pieces in smaller sizes. Another factor which is obvious, but it's important to put that through, is with regard to the temperature. The higher the temperature, the more would be the rate of dehydration of that particular product. This, however, is also subject to different technologies that are currently available, where dehydration can take place at a faster time period at lower temperatures, that is subject to the technology adopted, which I will try to highlight in my presentation as we go further. Another aspect to it is with regard to the air velocity. The higher the air velocity in the food product related to the heated air, the more would be the increased rate of dehydration, because the moisture absorption in the air would be at a much faster rate that's going forward. The factor with regard to temperature kind of is also negated when it comes to the atmospheric pressure. So there are technologies in which dehydration also takes place under vacuum or under certain pressure. So as you know, 1 atmospheric pressure, the water typically boils at about 100 degrees centigrade. If we tend to put this environment under vacuum, so the lower pressure would lead to lower boiling temperatures. So it's very important the environment under which the dehydration takes place, and whether it is under atmospheric pressure and vacuum conditions are also important, depending upon the technology that is typically adopted. And most important factor is with regard to the humidity in the air itself. So drier the air, more will be the moisture absorption of the food product. Hence, relative humidity is a key factor that goes with regard to dehydration. So surface area, temperature, air velocity, atmospheric pressure, vacuum, and humidity. These are some of the key factors that go in ensuring a good quality dehydrated food product. As you know, there are multitude of products that can be dehydrated, from prepared foods to fruit and vegetable derivatives, to fruit and vegetable itself, to floriculture products, to meat and poultry products. I mean, pretty much the entire gamut of the food processing sector uses dehydration in some way and form to ensure a better quality food product to the consumers or to their clients. Let's talk a little bit with regard to the dehydration technology. There are multitude of technologies which are taken into account, but the oldest preservation technique with regard to dehydration has been solar. As you know, the sun rays and the heat associated with that is the least energy consuming process and the least costly process in terms of ensuring that the product is dehydrated, but it's a very, very lengthy process compared to, so time takes, it's a long time that it takes to for the product to dehydrate, and it is subject to climatic conditions, which means that you are not sure of, in case of change in a climatic condition, there can be change in the product quality also. And another key factor which goes negatively, sometimes there are contamination issues related to the way in which product is solar dehydrated and handled. Basically, contamination happens more from a point of view of handling aspect of it than anything else. And these are the possibilities one should be aware of. Somewhere about 50 years back, I can say, Indian industry moved majorly, this is in 70s I'm talking, Indian industry moved majorly into air-dried dehydration-based technologies, where a lot of plants came up with regard to air-based drying. Onion and garlic dehydration is a good example of that in India. Here, basically, the product, there is a use of heated air which is exposed onto the product. And there are opportunities whereby this is a low investment cost, but the rehydration takes place in a longer product. So the product as such has a more of a shriveled look, and because of the air dried impact of it, it also impacts the nutritional elements associated with the food product. So the key aspect of it is that we are basically using air, heated air, and exposing the product to heated air to eventually remove the moisture out of it. And it has its plus and minus points. Another negative point of it is the color saturation that sometimes takes place in that particular product. A very interesting technology that has emerged, for which India is right now importing a lot of such products from Southeast Asia, is with regard to osmotically dehydrated food products. In osmotically dehydrated food products, you are basically looking at a medium in which the product is put, which can be a salted or a sugary medium, and there is an osmosis that takes place whereby the medium enters the product and the moisture is removed. But keeping in mind that this process is taken up to a point, and hence there is not complete removal of moisture in this particular process. But this process can be used in combination of other technologies also. So that's an important aspect of it. Just to keep in mind, this process, one of the key factors is this is a low-cost process. And being a low-cost process, it helps still in retaining the color and the flavor of that particular product, and helps in ensuring that the shelf life is achieved. So this is a very interesting technology that is currently emerging in India. Another aspect of dehydration technology is related to freeze drying. Now, this is one of those technologies whereby we are directly using the sublimation process, which means we are basically taking a frozen product and dehydrating that frozen product directly through sublimation process, rather than it being defrosted and taking into account. So it's done typically under vacuum conditions, and that leads to the fact that it typically matters, this technology, for products where the look of the product is very, very important when the product is rehydrated. Because this is one of the excellent processes in ensuring that in case you have food products which are added onto a particular product, and once you reheat it or rehydrate it, the look and the texture and the mouthfeel should be such that it is almost next to the original. This is typically used in those kind of products. This typically happens because the process retains the cell structure, and when the product is rehydrated, because the cell structure is not damaged, the rehydration is almost as back to the original process. Evaporation as a technology has been used for a long time now in Indian food industry. We typically see it when we look at it from a point of view of pulp and concentrates that are typically done, or it can be also done along with spray drying process, whereby we are basically changing the bricks level of that particular fluid. It's typically used in fluid-based products. It's a fast process in the sense that for the product to get evaporated compared to other technologies, the time taken is much, much less. And we typically use steam as a way of medium in ensuring that the product is more concentrated. So if you're looking to change mango pulp into mango concentrate or guava pulp into guava concentrate. We are basically trying to change the Brix level of it and therefore making it a more thicker of a solution. And hence the evaporation process is used. However, in terms of technologies, India is primarily dependent on it being an imported technology into India, and local companies have to step up in ensuring that we have good technologies, evaporator being made and fabricated in India locally. And that also becomes part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative that can be possibly be taking place. Another technology is associated with dehydration is related to dehydrating under vacuum conditions. So this is an important aspect of it, whereby, as I had hinted on it earlier, the dehydration pretty much takes place under vacuum conditions. So, for example, if you're looking at osmotic dehydration process, then you may be looking at either osmosis under vacuum condition or, for that matter, dehydration under vacuum conditions, whereby you are changing the pressure and the vacuum conditions to actually dehydrate the product at a much lower temperature and ensuring through vacuum that the process kind of takes place in a faster time period. This technology certainly helps in both the flavor retention as well as the color retention of that particular product, and is a low energy consuming process as compared to some of the other dehydration technologies associated with it. Microwave technology related dehydration, we have all been using this technique in a smaller form in at our homes and our offices, but basically the technology is the same, whereby you are using microwave technology to ensure that the moisture of that particular product is removed. The one advantage with regard to this technology is that not only is it a fast process, but also the drying rate is very uniform. And it is a very volumetric based heating. So therefore, there is a nutritive and a flavor retention that pretty much takes place in microwave dehydration. And it does not impact the color and aspect of the food product so much. However, one of the key aspects, which is why it has not been so much adopted, especially in India, is with regard to its high electricity cost as compared to some of the other technologies which use natural gases or natural fuels to ensure that the dehydration takes place. So that's one area why the cost of making a dehydrated food product through microwave-based technology is much higher as compared to other technologies. And last but not the least is the infrared dehydration technology, whereby energy is applied directly on the water present in that particular product through infrared rays. So keep in mind that infrared rays have a tendency of ensuring that the water is affected, water in the product present is affected versus the product in itself. And therefore, this leads to a much shorter drying process and a uniform temperature distribution in that particular product. However, again, being infrared, there is a high energy cost consumption, but it can be used in combination with other technologies associated with dehydration. So friends, that was a perspective to share with you in terms of dehydration technologies that are currently available with us, through which we can look to extend the shelf life, remove the moisture and extend the shelf life of that particular product. However, what is important is the equipments that are typically used to ensure that this dehydration takes place. So I'm going to share some perspective with regard to that and kind of help you understand these technologies. So we have bin dryer, tunnel dryer, phase dryer, spray dryer, fluidized bed dryer, number of technologies that are typically used. Let me share a little perspective on the same. So a cabinet dryer is pretty much an air-based drying technology where the equipment is, where the cabinet is used and hot air is passed through with regard to that. But however, this cabinet drying can also be used under vacuum drying conditions. So we can add pressure and vacuum to the cabinet dryer to ensure that the drying takes place also. When it comes to tunnel dryers, this can be used both from a point of view of microwave based drying or air based drying, or we can also be using it in infrared based drying technology, whereby a product is passing through a particular tunnel and either the infrared or the microwaves radiation or the air, hot air is put through that tunnel, and by the time the product comes out, the product is dehydrated. Spray drying technologies, you see this very, very commonly when you're looking at making something like a skim milk powder, in which we are basically using milk to convert it into a skim milk powder. And this is a fast process whereby the product is passed through a certain cylinder, and hot air leads to the product being converted to a powder, and by the time it passes through, we are having a skim milk powder in place. We also have freeze-dried technologies and equipments whereby, as I mentioned, the frozen food product can be taken and converted directly into a dehydrated product through a sublimation process, and we typically then get a dehydrated product from it. When we look at the bin dryers, these are typically used for cereal and grains in ensuring that that there is no moisture accumulation with regard to the food product or those cereal and grains. And sometimes silo systems are used to ensure that hot air is passed through and the product remains dry and the moisture is particularly removed. So friends, without being specific in each and every aspect of it, because of my limited time and a longer presentation, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of the dehydration technologies as well as some of the options that are used in ensuring that the products are dehydrated through the equipments that we typically use. With that, I would like to talk a little bit about the India perspective, about how, and our flag is getting hidden, so I'm going to put this here. So let's talk a little bit about the products that are getting exported in a major way from India, which are dehydrated products. And some of the top products that are there are dehydrated garlics in both powder as well as in flake as well as in cubed form. But I will talk a little about as we go along. So if we have seen a 5-year perspective in terms of the quantum of dehydrated garlic powder, we are already exporting about 7,000 odd metric tons of dehydrated garlic powder, and about 52 odd crores have been exported on an every year basis. Some of the key countries to which the dehydrated garlic powder is exposed is United States, South Africa, Bangladesh, Brazil, Turkey, and Spain. However, there is more an even distribution to that particular product, and there are more than about 70 other countries to which dehydrated garlic powder is exported. But some of the top countries are mentioned in the slide presentation. Another derivative of garlic in which we export is with regard to dehydrated garlic flakes. So if you see about 5,300 odd metric tons of dehydrated garlic are typically exported from India, leading to a revenue of about 44, 45 odd crores that typically happens. Now, India typically is exporting it to Southeast Asia as a key product. So if you look at Thailand, Vietnam, China, Nepal, the neighboring countries in the Southeast Asian region, which is a major usage of dehydrated garlic. Keep in mind that I sometimes get entrepreneurs who are talking about India competing on the dehydrated garlic scale with China and how we are at a disadvantage. But I would say we are really not at a disadvantage because the pungency factor of our dehydrated garlic is much more than that of Chinese garlic, which means that the amount of garlic that is used as an ingredient, Indian garlic that is used, is much less as compared to that of Chinese garlics that are there. We are also exporting other dehydrated vegetables that are there. But before I go into that, I would like to talk a little bit about dehydrated onions also, which India is a major exporter of. This is to keep in mind that most of that onion exported is in the form of white onions. So the major market for dehydrated onions is in the form of white onions. And India exports approximately 76,000 odd metric tons of dehydrated onions, and we are almost about 800 crores in revenue that we get from dehydrated onions as an export. Germany, US, UK, Spain, which is the EU countries, are the major buyers. In addition to that, USA and Russia are also key buyers of dehydrated onions from India. Again, the product distribution is even, but there are about 70 odd countries that are importing dehydrated onions from India. Let's talk a little bit with regard to other dehydrated food products. So in other dehydrated food products, we have dehydrated fruit vegetables, where about 2,900 metric tons is typically exported, leading to 76, 77 crores in revenues. Then we have dried fruits, which typically, if you see about 25,000 metric tons is exported from India. This is primarily exported to the Middle Eastern countries, so UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and a couple of other countries are key buyers of dried fruits from India. And about 2018-19, we had about $25 million in revenue being made from exports of dried fruits. And with regard to other dried fruits, we have Bangladesh as a key buyer of dehydrated dried fruits, where about 6,800 odd metric tons has been exported, leading to a revenue of about 20 odd crores. Friends, there is a huge opportunity. Actually, when we were looking at this data for the presentation, we had so many options in which India was looking to export. So we have dried prunes, we have dried under dried fruit categories, we have even meat products that are dehydrated from India and sell. And I'm not even taking into account the concentrate, the fruit pulp concentrates that are typically getting exported from India. As you know, something like a mango pulp concentrate, India is a dominant player in the world, where we have at least 50% of the total global market share. But I mean, dehydration technologies are even used in there. But some of the new technologies that are coming up, we have a tremendous opportunities, whether it is vacuum-based drying, whether it is osmotic dehydration, or whether it is freeze-dried products. The limiting factor may be the cost associated with each, Well, some are less, some are more, but these are opportunity areas where we are looking to ensure that the shelf life is extended, there are no supply chain disruptions, and we get a good dehydrated product which can be used beyond the seasons that typically exist in India or abroad. So let's look at the global markets that are there. Now, if we look at the global market, we are looking at the air-dried food market, which is the powdered, granule, and the air-dried based product. About 80, 90 odd $billion is the current market share, which is growing more on the consumer side than on the B2B side. So the consumer segment is growing at a much faster rate than the Indian segment, than the B2B segment associated with it. And if you see the growth and the overall market share, I think air-dried food products in quantum term, however, will be more used as an ingredient over time as time goes by. They still are, and in a major way, that's the major market. But the consumer side of the B2C market share is the one that is growing at a much, much faster rate associated. So we are about 90 odd $billion in terms of market revenue. Now, if we look at freeze-dried fruit, vegetable markets, we see instant coffee mixes, we see freeze-dried fruits and vegetable market. So this market is typically about $42–45 billion currently, and is growing at about 7.3% in terms of compounded average growth rate, and should be about $60 odd billion in 5 years time frame associated with it. Let's also talk from a point of view of powders and granules. I think the powder granule market typically is growing at about 4.8 to 5% market share, and this is also in the form of flakes, mince, chops, slices, and cubes. As I mentioned, garlic and onions are some of the forms in which you can be looking to export this out. And in terms of the global dried fruit market, this is about $4.5 billion of it, of which I would say about $1 billion is from a point of view of exports of fruits itself, and about $1.5–2 billion is in the form of exports of vegetables. The remaining are domestic consumption and domestic markets that are typically achieved, and the rest is in terms of the global trade that typically happens on it. So let's talk in terms of the key factors that are driving this dehydrated food market. So, and this is also similar to the freeze-dried market that we have. So if you see, as I mentioned, we are about $48 billion in terms of freeze-dried market. But one of the key factors is the fact that it helps us to negate the seasonality effect of this particular, of any particular commodity. It helps us to ensure retain the nutritive value of that particular commodity. And these are technologies that are used in both rural and urban centric production areas. Today we are seeing that the specialty retailers are kind of utilizing dehydrated food products as part of their ingredient base. So we have a huge ingredient sector that is growing as dehydrated food industry, and where the growth rate is significant that is happening. We have today dehydrated fruits that are coated with chocolates that we typically eat, and we have candied dehydrated fruits that are typically also eaten in candied form. So friends, there are a huge opportunity with regard to dehydration food industry. And my intent today was to highlight the opportunities that exist in the dehydrated food space and the technologies that are associated with it. We did see a whole supply chain disruption that happened during pandemic with regard to dehydration. And I'm happy to say that dehydration was one of those technologies used to extend the shelf life of that particular product. With that, I would like to end my presentation. And in case of any questions, you are most welcome to email us at sfc@sumanfoodconsultants.com, and we are happy to help answer any questions you may have with regard to dehydration associated with it. So thank you so much, and we look forward to any questions or questions that you may have with regard to dehydration technology that can occur and you may be having. Thank you so much.
This indeed was an extremely fruitful session. Thank you, Sagar ji.